Good evening, Florida, and welcome to Coastal Conservative News, where truth has a backbone and freedom still has a home.
We're bringing you the bold stories and the real headlines and the voices that matter most, right here from the heart of the free state of Florida, from Tallahassee to the Suncoast.
We're tracking the political shifts, community victories, and constitutional battles shaping the future of our state and our great nation.
So buckle up, it's time to get informed, get fired up, and get involved.
This is CCN, Coastal Conservative News.
Tonight on Coastal Conservative News, Florida lawmakers passed new medical freedom legislation, raising important questions about who ultimately controls personal health care decisions.
That should be an easy one, but the state also moves forward with a stablecoin pilot program exploring how digital currency could eventually interact with government services and financial systems.
And Attorney General James Uthmeier warns Tampa leaders about potential sanctuary city policies, setting up a debate over state authority and local government decisions.
Yeah, from public policy and health policy to financial oversight and the future of technology, we break down the issues shaping Florida right now.
This is Coastal Conservative News.
All right, guys, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier announced consequences this week for individuals involved in online child exploitation. According to the Attorney General's office, a Leesburg man was rearrested on 11 counts related to child pornography, and a Newport Richey defendant received a 25-year prison sentence in connection with similar crimes. Investigators say the cases involve online platforms and digital networks used to distribute illegal material and contact minors. Wow, Allie.
Cases like these highlight how modern law enforcement investigations have evolved. Child exploitation crimes today often involve digital evidence that crosses county lines and sometimes even state lines. That is why Florida uses the Office of Statewide Protection in cases that involve organized activity or multiple jurisdictions. This allows investigators and prosecutors to coordinate resources and build cases that can hold up in court even when the digital trail spans several locations.
I love this. It's like taking it, the adjudication into the next era, right?
One step further.
The Attorney General's office reports that statewide efforts have resulted in more than 1,400 child predator arrests in recent years, and over 1,500 investigations, involving online exploitation.
Wow.
That number is a reminder that this is not just a law enforcement issue, it is also a parenting and awareness issue, Allie.
Families today are navigating a digital environment that simply does not exist or did not exist 20 years ago. Smartphones, gaming platforms, and social media have created new opportunities for communication, but they have also created new risks that predators attempt to exploit.
Yeah.
Florida's approach right now is to treat online child exploitation as a serious statewide public safety issue rather than a scattered local problem.
As it needs to be, absolutely. Okay, so let's now move to health and wellness. According to Maha News, health policy continues to be an important conversation both nationally and here in Florida, particularly when it comes to questions about patient autonomy and medical decision-making. One piece of legislation drawing attention this week is Senate Bill 1756, often referred to as Florida's medical freedom legislation. This bill was passed by the legislature and focuses on strengthening protections for individuals like you and I when it comes to certain medical decisions.
Now, supporters of the legislation say the goal is to reinforce the principle of informed consent, which has long been a cornerstone of medical ethics. Informed consent means patients should be able to understand the risks and benefits of a medical treatment and make informed decisions in consultation with their healthcare providers and with their own conscience.
Yeah.
SB 1756 builds on policies Florida enacted during and after the COVID pandemic, scamdemic, however you want to put it.
Plandemic.
Right. When debate over vaccine mandates and medical requirements became widespread across the country.
And what's great about this is Florida's taking the executive orders of Ron DeSantis and they're actually they're codifying it into law. Maybe those in Congress will do the same.
Right.
The legislation clarifies that individuals should not be compelled to undergo certain medical procedures or treatments as a condition of employment. Interesting, having that freedom under your employment, education, or access to services in some circumstances. Now, supporters say the purpose is to ensure that personal medical decisions remain between patients and their healthcare providers whenever possible.
The pandemic raised a question of a number of difficult questions about the balance between public health policy and individual medical autonomy, which is important, right? When you have sovereignty of yourself over yourself in a sovereign nation, you should be able to make those decisions on your own without being force-fed or, forcefully being made to make those decisions, right? Some policymakers argued that emergency situations require broader mandates to protect public health, but mandates is not freedom. It is the antithetical to that. So others argued that these mandates raised concerns about government authority over personal medical decisions.
Yes.
Florida lawmakers have taken the position that clear legal guardrails should exist to protect individual rights in these situations.
Absolutely. Supporters of SB 1756 say the legislation is designed to provide those guardrails. By putting these protections into state law, lawmakers say they want to ensure that the future of public health emergencies do not override patient autonomy without legislative oversight.
At the kitchen table level, the question behind this issue is fairly straightforward. Who ultimately decides what medical treatments a person receives? Supporters of the bill say those decisions should remain primarily between patients and their doctors rather than being mandated by employers, institutions, or government agencies. And that also includes public health agencies.
Yes, as well. As health policy continues to evolve, guys, legislation like SB 1756 reflects a broader national conversation about how to balance individual rights, public health responsibilities, and the role of government in medical decision-making, non-existent. And here in Florida, lawmakers say their approach is focused on protecting informed consent and personal choice in healthcare. Thank God for the free state of Florida.
Right.
Yeah, now a new initiative announced this week focuses on improving nutrition education for future physicians. This is good. More than 50 medical schools across the country have committed to expanding nutrition training for medical students. Why was this not the first thing you're learning? And I mean, I'm obviously not a medical provider, but
I don't know.
Starts with your intake.
Right, it does. This is significant because historically many doctors receive limited formal education on nutrition during medical school.
Yeah.
Even though diet plays a major role in preventing chronic disease such as diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, the initiative calls for at least 40 hours of nutrition education or equivalent training as part of medical education programs. I think this is great because when you have hyperinflammatory responses in your body, it feeds more disease.
And this is trajecting the same way as MAHA. This is great. I hope our schools follow suit. Several Florida medical schools are among those participating in this effort, including institutions recognized nationally for their leadership in nutrition-focused medical training.
The kitchen table takeaway is simple. Better nutrition education for physicians can help families receive stronger preventative health guidance before serious health problems develop. Preventative care remains one of the most effective ways to improve long-term health outcomes and reduce health care costs. And keeps you out of the death care system.
The death care. Wow. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Now, Florida continues to experience widespread drought conditions, guys, and water management districts across the state are closely monitoring rainfall and groundwater levels. In several regions, modified Phase 2 water restraints and restrictions remain in place.
Yeah, Florida's water supply is managed through 5 regional water management districts that monitor rainfall levels, aquifer health, and water demand. When water levels fall below certain thresholds, restrictions are implemented to protect the long-term sustainability of the state's water resources, Allie.
And guys, it's important for you all to know that. That's why we go through this, right? Because if you don't know how these government agencies operate, you're not going to understand why it's important to you. Politics literally is in everything. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention, right?
Yeah,
all right. Now, drought conditions also increase wildfire risks and place additional pressure on agricultural irrigation. We are an agricultural state. Now, with Florida's population continuing to grow rapidly, balancing water supply between residential use, agricultural tourism, and environmental protection has become increasingly important.
That's so true. Protecting Florida's water resources is not simply about environmental policy, guys. It's about ensuring that communities across the state continue to have reliable access to water as Florida's population expands. We don't get more water, so we're sharing it amongst those that are coming here, and I think this is very, very important.
Now, what does this look like now that we don't in contrast to hurricanes, right? Because we haven't had one at all. We haven't even had a tropical storm.
Right, and I think, as much as I love that we didn't see the strengthening of, Category 4 and Category 5 storms, we didn't see the rainfall either.
Right.
So let's hope that maybe we'll see at least a little bit more rainfall. I don't like rainy days, so this is hard for me because we need it.
But we need it.
I don't like the pythons or whatever that we
talked about.
Apparently we need those too, whatever. All right, guys, turning to sports, the Orlando Magic had a strong week with impressive wins against Minnesota and Milwaukee before facing a close matchup against Cleveland. As the NBA season moves into its final stretch, teams across the league are focusing on consistency and playoff positioning. So as much as I kind of don't follow basketball, the postseason like this is really fun.
It is. So the Miami Heat also had a solid run with multiple wins during the same period, showing the kind of offense performance that could make them a factor as a postseason approaches.
That's right. In the NHL, the Florida Panthers, wow, Florida's strong, right?
We are. We're killing it.
The Florida Panthers bounced back from an earlier loss with back-to-back victories over Detroit, while the Tampa Bay Lightning split their games during the week.
At this stage of the season, the biggest factors become player health, depth, and consistency as teams prepare for playoff push.
Everybody's got to get healthy because you need your strongest players. Right?
So be Maha compliant. We are rooting for all Florida teams, even though someone. No, I'm kidding.
What? I like my Chicago teams. I don't like my Chicago politics. I like my Chicago team.
Right. That's all good. Okay, now that is your week in review, guys. Thanks so much. We will be right back where we're going to take it local with our Suncoast community and a special little interview we did.
That's right, because we're right up on the 2026 midterm elections, so you'll be seeing a lot of candidates come through our studio and interview with us. That'll be a part of our community segment.
All right, keep it right here. We'll be right back with more CCN.
From the heart of Marietta, Georgia, comes a tribute to the spirit of liberty. Liberty Cigars, where history meets craftsmanship. Each cigar tells a story. The Founders Collection honors the visionaries who shaped a nation. The President's House Collection celebrates the leaders who steered it. And the Naval Series salutes the heroes who defended it. Handcrafted with precision, each blend mirrors the essence of its namesake. From the boldness of George Washington to the elegance of Thomas Jefferson. Indulge in a moment of reflection. Light a Liberty cigar and savor the legacy. Discover your story at libertycigars.com because every great nation deserves a great cigar. Liberty Cigars, smoke the history. And don't forget to use promo code OPENMIC for 10% off your order.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming back to CCN. Here on the Suncoast, families had the opportunity to experience something unique at Mote Marine Laboratory on City Island. The event is called City Island Shark Pups and Grown-Ups, and it is designed to introduce children and families to marine science through hands-on learning.
I'm not touching a shark. Are you kidding me? Mo, I love you, but
I'm weird.
Okay,
I totally would.
I touched a gator because they taped his mouth shut, but you were
You
holding
barely
him, petting. I'm naming him. I'm Lord. Participants learn about shark biology. Maybe I should. They learn about shark biology, ocean ecosystems, and the role sharks play in maintaining healthy marine environments. I know we need them. Researchers and educators from Mote Marine Laboratory guide families through interactive activities that help explain how these animals contribute to ocean balance. Okay, I like them.
Florida's coastal waters are among the most biologically diverse marine ecosystems in the country. Wow. Institutions like Mote play an important role in researching marine life and helping the public understand the importance of ocean conservation.
Yeah, programs like Shark Pups and Grown-Ups also give children the opportunity to develop curiosity about science and environmental stewardship at an early age. And here on the Suncoast Alley, that connection to the ocean is a defining part of our community. And maybe that's part of my problem. I didn't have that growing up. So
it's all good. Those are the headlines shaping life across Florida this week. But right now, we're going to play you a little interview that you did with
congressional candidate Eddie Spear. Guys, if you are a candidate or know a candidate running for office here in Florida, make sure you have them reach out to contact@coastalconservativenews.com. We'd love to give them a chance to answer our questions and keep you informed on the candidates you're going to see on your ballot. Here's our interview with congressional candidate Eddie Spear. Hi, guys, and welcome to Coastal Conservative News. I'm Michelle Posey with a great, wonderful guest. You know, we're bringing you more and more interviews for those that are running for office. We are the place we want you to be able to go to test who's running for office and what do the candidates believe. And honestly, Eddie, I'm surprised how very little local media focuses on the message of people running, whether it's school board or statewide, or even in your case, running for Congress. So welcome to Coastal Conservative News. We're happy to have you.
Thanks. It's awesome to be here, and I'm just so glad you're doing this. I've been ostracized by the local media for a long period of time, going all the way back to my time at New College of Florida. They just want to tell one side of the story, and if you don't fit their narrative, you will not get any airtime, and they will silence you, a lot like we see at the Republican Party silencing the grassroots movement. It's the same thing. The media is a lockstep and barrel with, or lockstep with that kind of silencing of a grassroots, conservative, constitutional type of a movement that we have.
So cool that you mentioned that, because that's exactly why we started Coastal Conservative News. We kept the word conservative in here because we want our viewers to know what our perspective is, but there's just not a lot of media, any media, where you can get a fair shake in conservatism. So we're happy that you're here. Now you're running. Tell our viewers your name, what seat you're running for, and why you decided you wanted to run for office, although it's not your first time.
No, it's not. So my name is Eddie Spear, and I'm running for Florida's 16th Congressional District. I ran last time against Vern Buchanan, and by God's grace, I got 40% of the vote, which is more than double just about everybody else was in the teens, any other challenger in the whole state of Florida as far as congressional races goes. It's hard to run against an incumbent, but we went out there and we shared the message, and we met with a lot of people, and it resonated. And so I've heard that you need two of three things to win an election of this caliber. So you need name recognition, favorability, and money.
Right.
So I don't have the money, but we got the name recognition out there last time. We had just a lot of people that came around and said, no, this guy's the real deal. And we're going to capitalize on that and say the real deal. Eddie Spear for Congress, the real deal. So go ahead and check my bona fides, my resume. Been a constitutional conservative from the beginning all the way back to Rush Limbaugh, through Andrew Breitbart, and so we need somebody that has the instincts to defend our liberties. So we'll see what happens. I'm running unopposed right now, by the way.
Right.
Vern Buchanan is not in the race, and
he's
so
retiring, right?
The path is open. That's right.
Well, and so part of what we hope to do here is help guide our audience to where they can support you, because they'll be a part. Listen, this is your heavy lift, guys, for who you elect, to where they can support you. But we're going to talk a little bit about what your message is specifically.
Yeah.
So being that you are an America First candidate, I know we heard a lot about this in the primaries in 2024. Tell us what that means to you as a congressional candidate, and how does that set you apart from maybe others that have either held the same office or others that are running in races?
Yeah, so what does that look like? Because it's hard to distinguish America First. One of the things that I did in the campaign last time is I exposed the rhinos, the people who are saying the right things but then not voting the right way. So what are some of those votes? There's a lot. The omnibus bills, that's one of them. That's a procedural trick to avoid accountability, so that members of Congress don't come back home and say, well, you voted for this, you voted for this, you voted for this. They just can throw up their hands and say, well, I didn't have a say in it. Everybody's passing the buck, and Congress isn't doing its job, which is the purse strings of the federal government.
Right.
And so they've just push this off to all these different bureaucracies that are unaccountable, and there's no transparency. And so we need somebody that's going to go up there and highlight these things and force action. It's like the Elvis Presley song, a little less talk, a little more action. So that's going to be tough, honestly, if you're only one of 435 people. But as I demonstrated before, you can be noisy, you can point the right thing out, and it's the exposure. It's the exposure of the corruption that will cause change. And we need transparency. Transparency.
We do. You're right, and accessibility. And I know that's something that that you've been very accessible to the people in your district, not just when you ran before, but even since then, with keeping an eye on the temperature of what's happening. Right. So when Eddie Spear goes to the House of Representatives, is there anything that you want to do with current, do you see anything that's done currently, like with legislation or things that are still being fought for, that you're a proponent of or that you don't want to have happen? And what would you maybe implement? What's some legislative priorities?
Well, I mean, what's happening right now, so let's just look at what's happening right now. It's the Save America Act.
Yes.
It's the election integrity, and we've got to make sure that illegals aren't voting in our elections. We've got to protect the integrity of the election. Yeah. And there's rhinos in Congress, and I've mentioned this on social media, but I'm just going to say it again, that Cornyn and Paxton, that race for Texas Senate is really a bellwether of where the nation is and also where Florida is right now. And so if you didn't know, Cornyn is a Republican in name only. He's been stalling. He said, I'm for the Save America Act, and then he's not. He's not willing to go through and actually do the work to get this thing passed. You know, they just want to protect themselves.
Right.
And Ken Paxton even went out there and said, look, I will run out of the race if you pass this. He called his bluff, and that was a great move.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a microcosm of me against whoever the establishment puts in my place. And so Joe Gruters, the head of the RNC, is going to put some establishment member who's going to carry the water of the status quo in my race. And so you're going to see that my race is going to mirror that race in Texas.
So, and speaking of Gruters, because I know he's the RNC chair, do you know, is the Buchanan camp currently considering anybody, or have you, because I know you ran against him the first time, have you heard any grumblings about what that might look like? Yeah,
I've heard that Buchanans are not in it, other than I think it's Tara Bolton is running for county commissioner.
Okay.
That would be about it. James, and we all thought that James might run. I don't think the establishment is comfortable with James running. They want to put somebody up there that they, somebody more viable, I think. And so the latest word was that Joe would ask his wife to run.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're here because we try to reach out to all candidates and give them the welcome to be able to come in. I know you're the only one that has filed. So tell me a little bit about what do you think is going to be your biggest hurdle or your heaviest lift going in there? You've spoken about maybe not seeing eye to eye with those that are in establishment. However, you'll be called to kind of work with them. What do you think that's going to be like, and what do you bring as the candidate, America First candidate, that what do you bring with you that will help you do that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have seen me as a firebrand, as somebody who's going to call things out, and so what my challenge is going to be, and I've done it before, is creating coalitions so it's not just this gadfly in the back, that somebody's actually going to make a change and pass legislation that's meaningful legislation. And also, a lot of times it's just exposing bad legislation and making sure that some of these pork amendments get knocked out of certain bills. So
that makes sense.
Working together as a team, but also maintaining the integrity, so that I'm coming back and telling everybody here exactly what's happening up there. There will have to be compromises in certain areas, and I want to weigh that as a representative of we the people, saying, I had this, I gave this, and that's not very common up there for somebody to speak so transparently with the constituents. But that's been my goal from the beginning. When I signed that oath at New College of Florida, I understood who I was beholden to. First, to God. Second, to the people of Florida. And then the political machine comes in and tries to take you over and get you to do what they want. And they're good at it. And honestly, I'm good at bucking that trend, maintaining the integrity, and serving and following through with the oath that I made.
That makes perfect sense. There's been a lot of people, especially in our community, between Sarasota and Manatee counties. I know you talked a little bit about it, but some of the disenfranchisement that's happened with people that want to get involved, maybe you're not, we're not quite as polished, and I say we because I've been thrown into that category as well too.
Yeah.
What do you see happening as far as for candidates now wanting to step forward? We're all coming from different backgrounds. Are you seeing any pushback from the party or any help from the party, or do you think that what you're doing as a candidate really can be done independently of the party?
That's a great question. The party they've captured the leadership at the highest levels. So it's been hijacked, and then they want to promote their candidates of their choosing that are going to support what they're grooming. That's the best way I can describe it.
Oh no, you're the second person today that's used that exact word.
Really?
That's pretty funny, yeah.
They're actually grooming candidates, and so you've got candidates that are on a continuum of completely corrupted from the beginning, and they just want power and they understand how this whole game is played, to people that are naive and corruptible.
Yeah.
And they're down on their luck, and so there's going to be people that the establishment is going to put forward. But what I'm seeing is that, especially in Manatee County, especially in this area, that people, the grassroots is actually getting stronger. They silenced us, literally silenced us, kicked us out of the Republican executive committees, many of us, and now the people who have it just burning in their hearts, this desire for freedom, we know that this is wrong, and so we've got to step up. I wouldn't have been such a fighter if I hadn't been kicked out and pushed, and I see the same with you. When this happens, it's like, no, I'm not the only one.
Right.
This is a bully. There's bullies that are in our backyard that we need to say, no, it's about we the people. It's not about being controlled by lobbyists and corrupt politicians and corrupt members of our government.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I wanted to get your take on as well is, in the field that you're going into, that you're going to have to work cohesively with people that maybe you don't see eye to eye even within our own party. So do you have a game plan on how you will do that? And for the record, you will work with the Republicans that are elected in the House of Representatives, even though you maybe don't agree with them, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to find something that we agree on. And so if you're building a team, you gotta find the cohesion that holds us together. So why are you a Republican? That's the first question. Are you just completely phony, or is there a reason that you became a Republican in the first place? You believe in limited government. You believe in free enterprise. You believe in constitutional powers and checks and balances within the government. Don't you?
Yes.
And then see where people stand, and then work with them from there.
Makes sense.
And so it'll take a lot of work, but that's what I've been doing my whole life. Any endeavor that I've reached out and started, it's taken a lot of work. I honestly don't know how, similar to you, how to not work hard and achieve those goals. So it's gonna take work. It's gonna take teamwork, and there are not a lot, but there are members of Congress who still maintain their integrity and are holding to conservative values. And if they're not holding them to them in their heart, they at least have to pretend when they go back home and share that with their constituents.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There's a couple topics that I know our viewers have written in and said, what anybody that's running for any office, they kind of want to know how you feel about these three topics, and they're all related to our rights. So and I'll just list them off so you can tell me what you believe.
Yeah.
In our freedom of speech, what are your thoughts there? Medical freedom and parental rights. So if you think about those three silos, but they all kind of cohesively work together too.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, what does a House of Representatives Spear feel about those?
So freedom of speech, first, you don't understand how much it's been limited until you've been silenced. Yeah. And it's strange. I'm just going to call out some platforms right now, because this is where this free speech is supposed to happen, is on social media, and it's not happening there. And for a while there, Twitter was the answer. And now all of a sudden it's not. And now I'm finding that I'm getting less censored on Facebook than X. I'm like, what? And I'm measuring these, but nobody's talking about these things. But you can see it when I put a post and I mentioned Bill Gates and pedophilia. just on it will not get past 200 views. It's crazy. I mean, I can see it right there, right in front of my eyes. And then on other platforms, you can't even say these things. And let's go back to the tyranny, the medical tyranny that happened during COVID. We cannot forget these things, and we can't forget these things until Fauci and his minions are put in jail. Enough talk. There's contempt of Congress. We can bring them up on charges of contempt of Congress if the Department of Justice won't do their job. We need to hold the Department of Justice accountable, because where do they get their money from? They get their money from Congress. Yeah. So I can pull up any member of the Department of Justice up for a vote and say, this person's salary needs to go to $1. And so let's start with Pam Bondi. I'm done with the Epstein list and just talking about it. We need to see people go to jail.
Right.
And until that happens, both with medical freedom and with a pedophilia that's happening in our government and creating this two-tier system of justice, this is not acceptable, and I wouldn't be doing my job as representative of this area if I didn't call those things out. So that's, let me see, that's free speech.
And then so medical freedom and parental rights, which I think you kind of touched a little bit on medical freedom. You obviously, you remember what took place during COVID. And I think, if you could elaborate a little bit on parental rights too, because we're seeing the diminishing of the Department of Education federally. Yeah. A lot of things are going back to the states. So maybe you can let our viewers know what your thought is about that. You've got a huge background in education.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I started a school called Inspiration Academy. It's a great school, private Christian school, K through 12. And let's go back to the medical freedom.
Yes.
Because what happened was they came in with police officers and said, you cannot do what you're doing, because there was a video that went out where we weren't following the mask mandates, and we didn't, and I wouldn't. Now, we got to take a step back and understand how all that happened, because it was incredibly difficult, because I believe in the Bible, and Romans 13 says we need to obey our government. So now my government is telling me something that is completely a lie. We did the research. We knew that masks weren't effective. It's like a chain link fence trying to keep out mosquitoes. It doesn't work. And yet this was detrimental, devastatingly detrimental to students who are trying to learn this at the critical stages of their lives. And so this is wrong, but the government's telling us to do that. You need to understand the Bible and work through the issues to understand that there's a higher authority, and we have precedents in the Bible of Paul saying, I know you want me to go here, but I appeal to Caesar. And so he appealed to Caesar. And so what I did is reconciling my beliefs with what good government should look like, and protesting, recognize that we have a higher authority here, and it's called the Constitution. So even though police officers are coming and saying, you need to do this or we're taking you to jail, I had to say, you're not allowed on our property, and this is unconstitutional, and these are unlawful orders that you're following. So I challenged them. And then we had the national news. We had helicopters flying by doing stories on us. But that's a massive amount of pressure. But what you need in somebody in Congress who has the instincts to stand by constitutional values, to stand by what is true and what is right. And only in a crisis like that do you really see somebody's true colors, honestly. And so I'm thankful, and I'm thankful to God for putting that fire in my heart to speak the truth at that time. So all the way to parental rights. Parental rights, I mean, let's go back to God. How is this nation started? It's on Judeo-Christian values, and God created me. And it's not just parental values, it's how we treat other people, even people that are our enemies. So I'm going to take a step back here and also talk about New College of Florida, if I could.
Good, yes, definitely.
Because it explains my view that I don't get the opportunity. Certainly the media wasn't going to share this story, and nobody else is going to share this story. Right. But at New College of Florida, there's some bragging rights here. We were the first college, I was a trustee there, and we were the first college to eliminate DEI in the nation. So Chris Rufo was running the lead on that as far as messaging. I was right there with him. we developed a group called Mothers Against Rufo and Spear, Mars group at New College of Florida.
Right.
So, but we were speaking the truth about the problems with DEI. And then gender studies came along. It didn't come along, it was there the whole time. But I went out and I felt that I needed to say this, so I, on social media, texted out and put a post that said, trans is a mental disorder. Now you need to understand that there's over 50% of the population there at the time identified as LGBTQIA. And so that is like the worst possible thing. You don't make friends that way, right? But in order to have a conversation, we have to understand each other. And then God put it on my heart right after that. Please understand that we had to have SWAT teams before we went on campus.
Security was tight, yeah. They had
was
bomb threats.
Bomb threats, had death threats. I had personal death threats. So then I felt like God had put it on my heart that I just need to go right there in the middle of campus, right in the middle of the day, and just try to have conversations. And so I did, and the biggest advocate and the loudest voice on campus saw me, started yelling at me, and said, "Are you Spear?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "Where do you get off doing this and this and this?" I'm like, "Well, you want to have a conversation?" He's like, "Well, yeah, I do." And so we sat down, and the first thing I told him, and I didn't think about this beforehand, I thank God for this, is that you need to understand that I believe that you are made in the image of God. I'm made in the image of God, and you're made in the image of God. And therefore, because of that, you have infinite value. And I'm going to treat you with the respect of somebody that has infinite value. So that will completely color all of my interactions with people that I disagree with, and also to protect people that don't have a voice in the process.
That's amazing. And to that note, I know we've seen our leaders, for everybody from Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, you got Secretary of War Pete Hegseth the other day reading Psalm 144. So you've got a lot of leaders that are bringing their faith and the fact that they are Christians and they want God's anointing to be on this nation. It's empowering to hear that you feel the exact same way. I want to make sure before we end today that you give people, our viewers, a chance to first of all know where they can find you to support you, and second of all, any messaging that you want to deliver to them, because this is your time. We want to make sure that you get the time to deliver your message.
It's so awkward. I've never, had somebody that actually does their job in media.
That's why we started.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yep.
So Eddie Spear for Congress. That's Eddie Spear, SPEIRFOR, Congress.com. That's the website. That's the best place. But also go to social media. Just search Eddie Spear for Congress, Florida's 16th Congressional District. And do me a favor, like and follow, make comments. We need to make sure that the silencing that happens there, if there's enough people, they won't be able to ignore us. Yes. And the same goes with election integrity. We need to win so big that they can't cheat.
I love that. And thank you so much for joining us. Guys, make sure you reach out to find out more about Eddie Spear for Congress. And what I will say is that you're on the record a lot. There are candidates out there running for many different offices that don't take the opportunity to really go on the record when it's tough, and you have been one of those champions that's done that. So I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Guys,
Absolutely.
We'll be back with more Coastal Conservative News after this. All right, guys, coming up next in Political Pulse, we break down the governor's latest actions, legislative developments moving through the Capitol, and how those policies affect Floridians across the state.
When we come back, we'll shift from local impact to statewide and national decision-making on Political Pulse. We'll be right back with more after this.
They call masculinity toxic, but the truth is, God calls it sacred. My name is Camden Beddinghouse, and I've seen how the world takes what God meant for us as men and turn it into this thing called toxic masculinity. I wrote Fearless Masculinity because my generation's been lied to. We've been told to sit down, stay quiet, and apologize for being men. This world doesn't need weaker men. It needs men who are willing to stand up and become fearless. Men who protect their families, serve their communities, and live without fear. Fearless Masculinity is a roadmap to discover who God truly made you to be as a man. It's about rediscovering purpose, building courage, and stepping into who God truly calls you to be. If you're tired of being called toxic just for being a man, and you're tired of shrinking back, tired of silence, This book is for you. Are you ready to step up? If you are, go to CamdenBettingHouse.com to get more information and become a fearless man of God.
Welcome back, Florida, to CCN. Let's dive right into this week's political pulse. All right, Allie, take it away.
Let's begin with the governor's agenda. Governor Ron DeSantis issued several executive orders this week extending earlier emergency management orders related to recovery efforts from recent storms.
Yeah, executive orders like these allow the state to maintain certain administrative authorities that support disaster recovery. These authorities can affect contracting, coordination with local governments, and the continued use of emergency resources during the recovery process.
I mean, we don't really need that this year, but I think it's good that he's put it in place.
Absolutely.
In case. I like
Just in
the
case.
fact that he is prepared instead of being reactionary, and that is good leadership.
Allie, did I see that Governor DeSantis did something with one of our favorite founding
Yes, he did.
fathers?
He
Alexander
did.
Hamilton, go.
He did. Okay, so the governor also unveiled a statue honoring Alexander Hamilton in Hamilton County as part of Florida's participation in the upcoming America 250 commemoration.
Yep, events tied to America 250 are intended to highlight the nation's founding history as the United States approaches the 250th anniversary of independence. Yet this still triggers some people. I'm not sure why. Happy birthday, America.
Yes.
Sanctuary policy. There's been a sanctuary policy debate in Tampa, from what I understand. Another issue that's been drawing attention this week involves a growing dispute between state officials and local leadership in Tampa over immigration enforcement cooperation. Now, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier recently warned city leaders that any policies preventing cooperation with federal immigration authorities could violate Florida law. The concern centers around the possibility of sanctuary-style policies, which are local government policies that limit how law enforcement agencies cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Florida law prohibits sanctuary jurisdictions and requires local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement in certain circumstances, Allie.
It should be in all circumstances, actually.
Yeah.
That law was passed by the Florida legislature in 2019 and makes it clear that cities and counties cannot adopt policies that prevent law enforcement officers from sharing information with federal immigration authorities or honoring certain immigration detainer requests. State leaders supporting the law argue that immigration enforcement cooperation is not simply a local administrative decision.
Yeah.
It's not. They say it is directly tied to public safety and national security because coordination between local, state, and federal agencies helps law enforcement identify individuals involved in criminal activity and prevent repeat offenders.
Yeah, federal immigration officials have said that when local jurisdictions decline to honor immigration detainers, individuals who have been arrested for other crimes may be released back into the community rather than transferred to federal custody. And we've seen that in other states, Virginia. We're not doing that here in Florida. According to data released by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, thousands of detainer requests nationwide have gone unhonored in recent years, resulting in individuals being released from local custody before federal authorities can take them into custody. Now, supporters of Florida's sanctuary prohibition law say those situations can create gaps in enforcement that place additional strain on law enforcement agencies and increase risks to you and I and our communities.
Exactly. So when you have law enforcement that is going after immigration, detainees that have been let out of jail or prison for whatever reason, and they're more focused on obtaining them than they are worried about policing our communities, you put your communities at risk.
It's a
right?
draw on resources,
It
absolutely.
really is a draw on resources. Now, law enforcement investigations often rely on information sharing between multiple agencies. Local police departments, county sheriffs, and state investigators and federal authorities frequently work together when cases involve individuals moving across jurisdictions. So maybe not so well. But here in Florida, we're trying to fix that.
That's right.
Supporters of Florida's law argue that limiting cooperation between those agencies can make it harder to track suspects, execute warrants, or prevent repeat offenders.
Which makes perfect sense, because anybody that read, well, no matter what your feelings are on 9/11, anybody that read the 9/11 Commission report said that was the #1 breakdown.
Yes.
Was in communication across agencies.
That seems to be a problem in a lot of areas.
Maybe communication. Supporters of sanctuary policies in other parts of the country sometimes argue that local police departments should focus on local crime enforcement rather than federal immigration matters. They say limiting immigration enforcement cooperation can encourage undocumented residents to report crimes without fear of deportation.
But Florida lawmakers took a different approach. By passing the sanctuary prohibition law, the state established that cooperation with federal immigration enforcement is a statewide public policy, public safety policy, not something individual cities can choose or opt out of.
You can't decide which law you're gonna follow.
No, you can't.
So the Attorney General's warning to Tampa is part of the state's effort to ensure those laws are followed. If a municipality were to adopt policies that conflict with state law, kind of like adopting Sharia law when we have the Constitution, they don't coexist.
Right.
The Attorney General has the authority to take legal action to enforce compliance. And Allie, he will.
And he's talking about Tampa City Mayor Jane Castor. That's exactly who he's talking about.
Let's be clear.
So for Floridians watching, the debate ultimately comes down to a question of safety. How law enforcement agencies coordinate, how laws are applied across jurisdictions, and how government fulfills its responsibility to protect the communities it serves.
Which is the main focus of government.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, pivoting. The Florida legislature also passed several bills this week. One of the more notable pieces of legislation establishes a Florida stablecoin pilot program within the Department of Financial Services.
Interesting. Now, the program allows the state to explore accepting certain digital payment systems through a controlled pilot while maintaining regulatory oversight. Supporters say the program helps Florida prepare for future digital financial infrastructure. I suppose there are those that have questions.
I'm sure. And another bill receiving attention focuses on expanding speech and debate education programs in Florida schools. Supporters say debate programs help students develop research skills, critical thinking, and the ability to engage respectfully with differing viewpoints.
You mean we're not currently doing that in our schools?
What?
Shocking.
No way.
Shocking. These types of programs are seen by many educators as an important part of strengthening civic literacy among young people. And hats off to a lot of the teachers that are being forced to work in these situations where maybe they were crippled to not be able to do this. Our goal is to support teachers who want to do the right thing. There's several broader issues are also generating debate right now, Allie, across Florida. One of the biggest involves the cost of property insurance and whether recent reforms will eventually lead to lower premiums for homeowners or not.
Among ongoing discussions that involve Florida and how it balances rapid population growth with environmental protections, particularly when it comes to water supply and development.
Yeah, that's true. And finally, the role of digital financial systems and emerging technology in government services continues to be a topic lawmakers are exploring. I'm glad they're at least having the conversation, just like AI. I'm glad we're at least having the conversation.
We need to, right?
Yeah.
It has to. We have to figure out how to lead the way with the
Yes.
new technologies that are coming out. If not, then how are we going to lead the nation? If Florida really does want to be first,
We do.
and lead the way, we need to figure out how to implement these, or we'll be stuck in the shadows.
And just like we're encouraging debate amongst our young people, I mean, we've got to be able to understand that we are debating some things here in the state of Florida. Several broader issues continue to shape conversations, guys, in Tallahassee right now. And these are the kinds of policy decisions that may not always dominate the daily headlines, but ultimately affect Floridians like you and I in very real ways. One of the most significant ongoing debates involves obviously property insurance and the reforms passed by the Florida legislature over the past few years. We want to see this stabilize our premiums for homeowners. We're hoping it'll do just that. Florida's property insurance market has faced unique challenges. You know that. You can feel it. The state experiences frequent hurricanes and severe weather events, but another major factor has been litigation, and people don't talk about this too much. For many years, Florida accounted for a disproportionately large share of property insurance lawsuits in the country, which drove the cost up for insurances and for insurance policies and contributed to companies leaving the market. Now, in response, lawmakers passed several rounds of reforms aimed at reducing excessive litigation, strengthening fraud enforcement, and encouraging more insurers to enter or remain in the Florida market, Allie.
Right. Now, the goal of these reforms was to stabilize the insurance system and eventually bring premiums down for homeowners. But insurance markets take time to adjust, guys. Rate structures, risk modeling, and reinsurance contracts often operate on multiple-year cycles.
Yeah.
That means many families are still waiting to see whether those reforms will produce long-term results. Now, for many Floridians today, property insurance has become one of the largest monthly expenses associated with owning a home.
It's true.
That is why lawmakers continue to watch the insurance market closely. The debate now is less about whether reforms, where necessary, and more about how long it will take for those reforms to translate into lower premiums and a more comprehensive insurance market. And I'm glad that we've had a break from some of our natural disasters so that we can get some of this looked at.
Some of the policies have come back. There's been a debate also in Tallahassee of whether or not we should combine, when you come into our insurance market, whether you should be forced to carry auto insurance as well, because that seems to be something that's more stable. I think our legislature decided not to do that. We also have a citizen-funded citizens insurance, which they're also looking at, because we have to make sure that as taxpayers, are you on the hook for potentially a catastrophic hurricane season?
And these are great questions to ask those that are currently running for office, guys. We have elections coming up in August for the primary.
Amen.
So it is important for you to get out, understand the issues, talk about them with resolve, and try to get those that are running to answer these tough questions.
Do they have any solutions? Absolutely. Another issue shaping policy decisions is Florida's rapid population growth. Everybody wants to be Florida.
Everyone is moving to Florida.
If you're not living in Florida, you have FOMO. Because over the past several years, Florida has been one of the fastest growing states in the country, with hundreds of thousands of new residents moving here from other states. It feels like most of them are on I-75. That growth brings economic opportunity, new businesses, and workforce expansion. But it also places pressure on infrastructure, housing supply, and natural resources. Communities across the state are grappling with questions about road capacity, school construction, water supply, and land development.
One of the biggest challenges is balancing economic expansion with environmental stewardship.
Yeah.
Florida's natural environment is one of the state's greatest assets. Wetlands, wildlife habitats, and coastal ecosystems support tourism, recreation, and biodiversity.
Yes.
But those same landscapes often sit in areas where development pressure is increasing as the population grows. That has led to ongoing policy discussions about land use planning and development reform.
Yeah.
Lawmakers and local governments are examining how zoning rules, infrastructure planning, and conservation programs can work together so that Florida can continue to grow without putting excessive strain on its natural resources.
And as just attending a meeting with some of our county commissioners, and that's exactly what they should be doing at the county level.
Yes.
So let's pay close attention to keeping that home rule in effect, where you have more local control on what you say when it comes to density. Be watching for that as well as we go into the midterms.
Midterms, yeah.
Ask them what they think about density and population.
Pay attention.
Sit up, pay attention. Another policy issue gaining attention involves immigration enforcement cooperation between local governments and state authorities. Florida law prohibits sanctuary jurisdiction and requires cooperation, as we just said, between local law enforcement agencies and federal immigration authorities. This is why people are coming here, Allie. They're fleeing here because Florida is jumping ahead of what the federal government is doing, because that's how you lead. You first codify it in your state. As we reported recently, AG James Uthmeier raised concerns about those potential sanctuary policies in Tampa. You said that's courtesy of the mayor. It's going to require whether or not they are in compliance with these new provisions, Allie.
That's right. And that situation highlights a broader constitutional question, right, about the balance between state authority and local government autonomy. Cities and counties manage many aspects of public safety within their jurisdictions, but state law establishes certain requirements that apply to the state, and so does federal, right?
Yeah.
And the sanctuary policy debate raises questions about where that line is drawn and how state laws are enforced when local governments take a different approach.
Yeah, and finally, another issue beginning to emerge in policy discussion involves a role of digital financial systems in government and in government services. Now, as technology continues to evolve, and you can say what you want about not liking technology, but it's not going anywhere. We need to be a part of the discussion. Lawmakers and financial regulators are exploring how emerging digital payment systems could interact, with government operations. So one example we alluded to earlier is the Florida stablecoin pilot program, which lawmakers recently approved to allow the Department of Financial Services to study. It's a pilot program.
Right.
It's a pilot program.
Calm down.
To study how certain digital currencies might be used in a controlled environment for government payments.
Right. Now, stable coins are a type of digital currency designed to maintain a consistent value by being tied to traditional assets like the U.S. dollar. Supporters say these systems could eventually allow faster transactions and modernized payment systems. But policymakers also want to study the risk carefully, including regulatory oversight, consumer protections, and cybersecurity concerns.
This is perfect.
It
We should always try things in a pilot program first. This is amazing. That is why the legislation created a pilot program rather than immediately adopting a full digital payment system.
Right.
Pilot programs allow the state to test new technologies, evaluate how they work in practice, and ensure proper oversight before expanding their use. They're looking out for you, really.
Now, these kinds of debates may sound technical at first, but they reflect larger questions about how Florida prepares for the future, whether it is stabilizing property insurance markets, managing growth responsibly, navigating immigration enforcement laws, or evaluating emerging financial technologies. The decisions being made today will shape how Florida functions in the years ahead, and understanding those debates helps Floridians, helps you at home, the constituent, the stakeholder.
Yes.
Helps you see where policies may be heading next. And it gives you an inside look on what is going on. You're not going to hear it explained like this. You're going to have to go to some kind of search engine to figure it out, and they're not going to explain it well.
And then good luck with that, because it's a left-leaning.
I mean, why not hear it from us? So
yeah. Oh, we're going to move on to education, right?
Yes,
This is one
I'm
of my
excited.
favorites.
So education policy remains very central focused in Florida. And one of the bills advancing through the legislature this week highlights an area that does not always receive a lot of attention, but plays an important role in developing civic literacy.
Civic literacy. Think about the last time you've heard about reading scores and reading proficiency in our public schools. This is important, Allie.
Absolutely. The Florida legislature passed SB 1062. We'll get into CS later.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. What is important is that it's SB 1062, the Speech and Debate Education Bill, which was sponsored by Senator Corey Simon and moved through both chambers with strong support before passing the House this week. The goal of the legislation is to strengthen and expand speech and debate opportunities for students across Florida schools. Speech and debate programs are often thought of as extracurricular activities, but lawmakers increasingly recognize that these programs develop skills that are central to education itself and to life after school. Students participating in debate programs learn how to research complex issues, evaluate competing claims, organize evidence, and communicate ideas clearly. When are you ever going to see that? You're going to see that in everyday aspects of your lives.
Is that like teaching them how to think, not what to think?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Go figure. Groundbreaking.
Go,
Those
girl.
skills may sound basic, but they are foundational to how democratic societies and republics function. Students in debate programs learn how to distinguish between opinion and evidence, how to support arguments with credible sources, and how to engage respectfully with opposing viewpoints, something we could all learn. In other words, they learn how to practice in civil discourse. Supporters of the legislation say these programs help students develop critical thinking skills that extend far beyond the classroom. Students who participate in debate often show stronger performance in writing, research, and public speaking. You know why? Because when you know why you think, not just what to think, you now can support it. You can write about it. You can explain it. You can speak publicly about it. It's that old analogy. If you teach me, I'll know what you taught me. But if you teach me to learn, I'll always be a student forever.
Yes,
of everything,
exactly.
right?
There is also a broader civic component to the legislation. Speech and debate programs mirror the same process that occurs in legislation chambers, like the Florida House and Senate. Lawmakers present proposals, respond to questions, defend their positions, and unanimously and ultimately vote.
Yeah.
Debate education gives students a firsthand understanding of how ideas compete in a free society. And it's just not the legislature. You can do this in business ventures. You can do this in your relationships. You can do this with anything, really. So it's important.
That's so important. Under current Florida law, some schools already offer speech and debate programs through extracurricular clubs or academic teams. However, Access to those programs can vary widely depending on the school district and available resources. The legislation encourages broader participation and aims to support opportunities for students who might not otherwise have access to structured debate programs.
Supporters say strengthening debate education also helps encourage students engage in civic life. Students who learn how to research issues and articulate their views often develop stronger interests in government, law, journalism, and public service.
Hey, that means you'll be on CCN. Now, at the kitchen table level, guys, parents often ask whether schools are preparing students for the real world. Programs like speech and debate help answer that question because they teach skills that apply far beyond school. Critical thinking, respectful disagreement, and clear communication are abilities students carry into college, careers, and community leadership.
And for the state that has placed increasing emphasis on civic education in recent years, legislation like the Speech and Debate Education Bill reflects a broader effort to strengthen those foundations, teaching students how to think and how to argue ideas respectfully and how to evaluate evidence is ultimately about preparing the next generation for responsible citizenship.
And that is going to be amazing. Okay, now we turn to Florida Accountability of Financial Oversight, or FAFO, where we look at how financial systems are monitored and how the state works to protect you and I, the consumers. Now, this week, the Florida Department of Financial Services announced the arrest of Mark Evan Brown, who is accused of misappropriating client funds. So we're seeing accountability. The arrest followed an investigation conducted by the Department of Financial Services Criminal Investigations Division, which is the law enforcement arm of the Chief Financial Officer's office, who basically gave him teeth. Yeah. This division investigates financial crimes across the state, including insurance fraud, financial misconduct, and cases where individuals are accused of misusing money entrusted to them by clients.
Now, when someone is accused of misappropriating client funds, it generally means money that was entrusted to them for a specific purpose was diverted or used inappropriately. This is probably going to be the first step before arrests maybe start happening at the local government level. Investigations like these often involve detailed financial analysis. Investigators review transaction records, bank statements, escrow accounts, and financial documentation to determine whether funds were handled properly or diverted in violation of the law. Because financial crimes can involve complex documentation and multiple accounts, these investigations can take months or even years to complete before charges are filed.
Yeah, for Floridians, this type of oversight is so critical. Financial crimes often involve funds connected to major life events such as real estate transactions, legal settlements, insurance claims, we just talked about the cost of insurance, or business investments. When those funds are misused, the consequences can be devastating for the families and businesses involved.
The Department of Financial Services plays an important role in protecting consumers by investigating fraud and enforcing financial laws. But enforcement is only one part of the department's mission. The CFO's office is also responsible for overseeing how Florida manages financial systems and preparing those systems for emerging technologies, which we hinted to already.
Yes, absolutely. That brings us to another issue lawmakers are beginning to explore. The Florida legislature recently approved the Florida stablecoin pilot program, which allows the Department of Financial Services to study the digital currencies and how it will be controlled in this environment for financial transactions, which I understand are only financial transactions with the government right now.
Right, which is why you have this CFO's office taking this kind of program and studying how it works. And it's designed...
because what if we can cut out some of the fraud and waste and abuse by doing this digitally? It's worth looking into.
I think it is. It's a form of currency, obviously, that is going to help maintain consistent value, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
unlike some cryptocurrencies that fluctuate dramatically in price, stablecoins are typically tied to an asset, like we mentioned earlier, the dollar, right?
Yep.
The goal is to create a digital currency that can move quickly through financial systems and maintaining stable value.
And again, just a pilot program.
Just a pilot. So I know we keep talking about it, but it's kind of
it might be a way to modernize payments, to be honest. And again, we will keep you posted on what comes out of this pilot program, as I believe it launches in fall of 2026. So we'll be coming up on that for an entire year. We'll bring you more up to date. I will say, guys, some policymakers have raised concerns about like a central bank digital currency kind of thing, often referred to as CBDCs, which would be a digital currency, Allie, issued directly by a national central bank, but this is different, right?
Yes. Critics of CBDCs worry that a government-controlled digital currency could potentially allow greater surveillance of financial transactions. And we know that all of you are thinking about that as well.
Sure. So tell us, are they different?
They are. So stable coins are very different. Instead of being issued directly by a central bank, stable coins are typically issued by private financial institutions or financial technology companies and are backed by reserves that are intended to maintain their value. Florida's pilot program focuses specifically on studying how those types of private digital assets could interact with government payment systems while maintaining regulatory oversight.
Yeah, so for most Floridians, it sounds like a distant technology topic, but discussions like this are really about how financial systems evolve over time. And Allie, somebody, I cannot remember the representative a couple years ago, talked about how we can preserve the dollar here in Florida if at the time under a Biden administration the dollar was depreciating. And somebody brought up the idea of, can we have like kind of our separate a separate system here in Florida that we can fall back on so that we're not left, if we're under a really poor presidential leadership,
that's something to think about.
Totally hitched to somebody on a federal level that we don't agree with. So if digital payment technologies continue to develop, states may eventually need to determine how those systems interact with government services, such as paying taxes, licensing fees, and other state transactions. Holy cow, there's a lot to this.
It is. It really is. And I know that CBDCs, when you hear about like cryptocurrency or something like that, everyone's like, no, we don't want a central banking system. We're tired of that. And we totally understand. But this is very different. This is why we're going through this. So exploring these new technologies now is a way to ensure Florida's financial infrastructure remains secure, transparent, and prepared for the future. And that reflects the broader purpose behind FAFO, right?
Yeah.
Ensuring accountability in Florida's financial systems today while also preparing for financial technologies for tomorrow. And we really appreciate the leadership of Blaise and Goglia.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys, that is it. I know it was heavy for your political pulse.
And I learned a lot. Now, guys, when we come back, Camden Beddinghouse brings us Cam in the Moment. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Hi. Hello, how are you?
We are here to get an IV.
An IV. I heard you have an IV room?
Yeah, absolutely. You just head right back this way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Knock, knock. Hello. Hi, I'm Michelle.
I'm Sarah.
Sarah. This
Hi,
is Al.
Allie. Nice to see you.
How can I help you?
We're stressed. We're moms. We've got multitasking going on. I feel like I fall victim to like a brain fog a little bit. I don't know if that's my age or whatnot.
You need a little bit of clarity, a little bit of energy.
Yep.
Right? Is there of an IV that you would recommend for that? Thank you.
We call this the brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
Come visit We the People Health and Wellness Center,
Where medical freedom exists.
Welcome to Cam in the Moment here on Coastal Conservative News. My name is Camden. Here are your week's biggest moments coming up. All right, guys, welcome back to the segments here on Coastal Conservative News. I'm Camden, like I said, and this is your favorite, I know, it's your favorite segment on Coastal Conservative News. You don't have to say it. We always like to hear from the young perspective. I'm 22 years old, and we got a lot going on in our community here in Florida that particularly relates to young people, and that's why this might be one of the most exciting episodes that I've done here, because Manatee County is where I'm from. I was born and raised in Manatee County, and some amazing things are happening there. As you all know, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was actually 6 months ago now that he was assassinated. I have this hat right here signed by him. And it was a hard first few months. And as the time went on, I just realized I had to do something about what he stood for, to carry on the torch, the legacy of Charlie Kirk, like millions of young conservatives around the country were doing. They were realizing we got to do something. You know, we look up to him as our leader, and now it's our time. The torch is being passed, and no one can ever replace Charlie Kirk, but everyone combined together can carry on his voice and his legacy. And that's what's happening right here in Manatee County. Last weekend, we had the launch of the Turning Point USA Manatee County headquarters, which is just phenomenal. I mean, I'm the director, so I'm a little biased, but there was a excellent turnout. I was so overwhelmed by the amount of support we had there. And just the overall community, everyone came together. It wasn't just young people. You know, we had a lot of students that many of which spoke and gave their ideas and what they thought about the future here. But we also had older folks who have been around a little longer, who have been mentors to people and leaders in the community that also came together and helped support this launch, which is just amazing. You know, Turning Point USA, Club America, these organizations that Charlie Kirk started are fundamental to the youth right now. In a era of so much division, so much indoctrination and confusion and hate and all of this stuff that's made a lot of young people kind of hate America, practically. I mean, you see how many people just take it for granted how amazing it is to live here, how important their freedom is, what the Constitution even means. And this is even shown by the amount of acceptance by Gen Z when it comes to communism. It's a lot. I forgot the exact percentage, but it's something like 20%, maybe more, of Gen Z has a positive view of communism, which is insane. But Club America, which is the high school branch of Turning Point USA, is basically a pro-America club for students to start at their schools where they can talk about the Constitution. They can talk about American exceptionalism, which I don't know if you've heard about that. I mean, that is the word of the year here for students in our generation who are conservative. It's American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism. We don't take it lightly how great we can be here in America. And, you know, capitalism and the systems that make this country so great that are in place, they get to talk about that with their group. And they get to discuss, what do we want to do here at our school or in our community hubs? What kind of initiatives do we want to start? How can we get students to register to vote? Stuff like that. That's what Club America is about. And this countywide hub will serve as a central point of Manatee County for all the leaders and clubs to get resources and help starting their own at their schools. And also, I want to do something awesome here in Manatee County. I want to bring the presidents of each high school club and even the homeschools and everything together for chapter president meetings to see, what are we doing good? How can we do better? What are we doing to make sure this generation flips and turns to be the most patriotic generation? Because that's the big problem. We see so many people, like I said, just don't care about America, don't really like it here, but we're going to change that. And that is why the countywide hub exists now, and I cannot wait to see what we do in the future. I can't wait to lead that group of students. This is my segment, so I can talk about that. But we had a great kickoff, like I said. Take a look at a few of the speakers we had. I'll show you a student, and then also some community leaders like Michelle Posey, our co-anchor here on Coastal Conservative News, who's actually the director of the Turning Point Sarasota branch. So take a look at some of the speakers here from our kickoff event.
To the students here tonight, look at the blessings God has given you. Yeah. Look at the mouth He gave you and speak with it. Look at the hands He gave you and write with them. Please look at the brain He gave you and use it. The ability of you all here tonight to use common sense and your intellectual ability is going to be what shapes this future generation.
We want young people to feel free to debate and engage in civics, and that shouldn't be a new idea, but you'd be surprised we do hit some roadblocks. I want to let everybody know, everybody here that wants to support Turning Point Club America, and all you youngsters that are in your chapters, 1 Corinthians 9:24, don't you realize that in a race, everybody runs? So everybody's trying to do something, whether you're building a business, whether you're teaching in a class, whether you're trying to raise a family, everybody's doing what you're doing. But only one gets the prize. We're aware of that, right? Everyone who competes goes into this strict training philosophy. They do it to get a crown that will not last. You guys, your families, the educators that believe in you, we do it to get a crown that will last forever.
Experiences like this remind us that freedom and self-government only work when citizens are willing to take responsibility for their communities and to stand for what they believe. That's one of the reasons I connected so strongly with the mission of Turning Point USA and the example set by Charlie Kirk. Seeing someone start something like this as a young person sends a very powerful message. Students don't have to wait until they're older to make a difference. Leadership doesn't begin someday in the future. Leadership begins the moment someone decides their voice matters.
It's time to pick up the torch and press on. It's time to become who God is calling you to be. Charlie served his purpose. Now it's our turn to step into ours. It is my honor to be the director of the Turning Point USA Manatee County headquarters. And for as long as I live, I will carry on the legacy of Charlie Kirk. We're going to lead the next generation to the truth. We're going to save generations and generations to come. And as Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. The future is now, and I believe the future is free. Do you agree?
Yes!
So there you have it. That's a little glimpse of what went on at that kickoff event. And can I just say, Charlie, we will make you proud. And I'm sure he's looking down right now, so happy about what we're doing as students and as community leaders to make sure that the future looks bright. Because that's what this all boils down to. The future looks bright. That's where we're going from here. We're heading in the right direction. And Turning Point, I just want to mention this as well on this segment. They're not done just because Charlie Kirk was assassinated and that he's passed. They're just getting started. This has lit a fire under so many students and so many people in the country and the world that are stepping up to continue his legacy like we are. And that's why they are continuing the tours at colleges with the This Is the Turning Point tour, starting in April 2nd at George Washington University with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt as their guest, with Erica Kirk as well. And then they're going to University of Georgia with J.D. Vance, Vice President, Ohio State University with Vivek Ramaswamy, Baylor with Trump Jr., and then University of Idaho with Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. So that's all in April, and that's where Turning Point is going from here. Wanted to just make sure I announce what they are doing at the national level as well. And we got to cover this stuff because this is coastal conservative news. We want to make sure that the youth has a voice, and that's why this segment is so important. We're making sure that youth has a voice here. And that's why I can't wait to see what the students do with their segment coming up. Maybe they get to have their own segment for a little bit and have some ideas out there. Last week we had a student from Northport, Port Charlotte chapter, who came on and discussed what they're doing over there. So Florida as a whole is doing a lot when it comes to the youth in the conservative movement. So don't worry. If you're older generation and you're looking at the future of Gen Z and you're like, I don't know, all I have to say is do not worry. As long as we're fighting for this country, the future looks bright. And so I want to end the segment with a wholesome moment of the week like I always do, but this time it's very special to me and to the future of Manatee County, because for the first time on here, I'm announcing that I'm running for school board of Manatee County. So do with that what you want. I'm not going to, I'm not endorsing myself on my own segment. I'm just letting you know that I'm running to bring a voice, to be a voice for my generation and to save future generations from so much damage and turmoil that we've seen go on in Gen Z. You know, I'm from the most suicidal generation in American history, and schools have got to return to being a beacon of truth and knowledge, and that's what we're going to do in Manatee County. And I can't wait to go from here. So thank you so much for coming to my segment here this week on Coastal Conservative News. And remember, we're up here every single week with Cam in the Moment, and I want to make sure I hear from you guys. So go on to social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever you want to do, and tag at Camden Trey B, or send me a message and let me know, what do you want me to cover on this segment? Is there a story that's going on that no one's covering that we want to make sure gets out there? Is there something happening in your community or your school or something around that we need to cover here? Well, let me know what you think, and we'll definitely get it on this segment. And don't forget to follow Coastal Conservative News for more as well, because we're going to be here covering Florida news, local news, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys next week for another segment of Cam in the Moment.
Thank you, Camden, for sharing such great information with us. We always appreciate how well you do this.
But I love how we always close it out with faith. And as we close out tonight, we shift from the noise of the moment to what grounds us beyond headlines and politics.
After the break, Kevin Gamble will join us with Faith in Focus. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more CCN. They've censored the truth, manipulated the narrative, and told you to sit down and shut up.
But not here. Not on our mic.
Open Mic with Ali and Michelle is the podcast where free speech lives, patriotism thrives, and the truth doesn't whisper, it roars.
That's right. We break down the stories the media buries, the policies that threaten your freedom, and the culture chaos Gen Z is waking up to literally every day.
From whistleblower exposés and global conflicts to the spiritual war on masculinity, we don't just talk about it, we say what they won't.
That's right. If you're tired of soft takes, scripted spin, and really plastic politics, it's time to tune in and turn up.
Because this mic is always open.
Welcome to Faith in Focus. Today we're exploring Genesis 1 through 11, a foundational portion of the Bible that sets the stage for God's story with humanity. Specifically, we're going to unpack the anthropomorphic language used in these chapters, the intriguing figure of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and how scholars like Dr. William Lane Craig and Wes Huff help us understand Genesis through the lens of the mytho-historical genre. So let's get started. First, let's tackle the anthropomorphic language in Genesis 1 through 11. When we read passages like, "On the seventh day God rested" in Genesis 2:2, it's easy to picture God kicking back after a long week, maybe taking a divine nap. But is that really what the text is saying? Anthropomorphism is when human characteristics, actions, or emotions are attributed to God to help us grasp his nature and actions in terms we can understand. God doesn't have a body, nor does he get tired like we do. Scripture is clear in places like Isaiah 40:28 that God is everlasting and doesn't grow weary. So when Genesis says God rested, it's not about God needing a break. Scholars suggest it's conveying a sense of completion, satisfaction, and ceasing from the act of creation to establish a pattern for humanity, a rhythm of work and rest like the Sabbath. Dr. William Lane Craig, a renowned Christian philosopher and theologian, emphasizes that Genesis 1 through 11 uses this kind of figurative language to communicate profound theological truths. In his work on the doctrine of creation, Craig argues that Genesis 1 through 11 belongs to a genre he calls mytho-history. This doesn't mean it's pure myth or fiction, but rather a blend of historical intent wrapped in symbolic and culturally resonant language. For Craig, the days of creation, for example, aren't necessarily literal 24-hour periods, but could represent long epochs or a literary framework to show God's orderly creative process. The anthropomorphic language, like God speaking the word into existence or resting, helps ancient readers and us connect with a transcendent God in relatable terms. Craig's point is that Genesis isn't trying to give us a scientific playbook, but a theological one, revealing who God is and humanity's place in his creation. Now let's zoom in on one of the most fascinating and debated parts of Genesis 1:11, the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In Genesis 3, we meet this cunning creature who tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit in the middle of Eden. Was this an actual snake slithering around in a tree, or is there more to the story? Wes Huff, a biblical scholar and apologist, offers some compelling insights here. Huff points out that the Hebrew word for serpent, nakash, can mean more than just a literal snake. It carries connotations of a supernatural being or even a deceiver. In the ancient Near Eastern context, serpents often symbolize chaos, evil, or divine adversaries. Huff suggests that the serpent in Genesis 3 is likely a representation of a spiritual entity. Most Christians would identify this as Satan or a demonic figure, rather than just a talking animal. This interpretation aligns with later biblical texts like Revelations 12:9, which calls Satan that ancient serpent. The idea of a literal talking snake might stretch credulity, but understanding the serpent as a symbol of a malevolent spiritual force fits the theological narrative of Genesis. It's not about zoology, it's about the introduction of sin and rebellion into God's good creation. The tree, the fruit, and the serpent are vivid images that convey the reality of human choice and the cosmic battle between good and evil. So how does this mytho-historical genre, as Craig and Huff describe it, shape our reading of Genesis 1 through 11? For one, it invites us to focus on the why rather than the how. Genesis isn't a modern science textbook or a historical chronicle like we might expect today. It's a theological masterpiece written to an ancient audience with their cultural idioms and worldview. The anthropomorphic language, God walking in the garden, resting, or forming Adam from dust, helps us see God as personal, relational, and invested in his creation. The serpent, whether a literal creature or a symbol of a greater evil, points to the reality of temptation and humanity's fall. As Dr. Craig often emphasizes, we don't need to pit Genesis against science or demand it conform to modern historical standards. Instead, we should read it as a divinely inspired narrative that communicates timeless truths. God is the sovereign creator, humanity is made in his image, and sin disrupts our relationship with him. Wes Huff echoes this, encouraging us to see Genesis as a story that's true in its theological claims, even if it uses symbolic or anthropomorphic language to get there. As we wrap it up, let's bring this home. Reading Genesis 1 through 11 with an understanding of its mytho-historical genre doesn't diminish its power, it deepens it. The anthropomorphic language makes God accessible, showing us his care and purpose for us. The serpent reminds us of the real spiritual battle we all face, but also points to God's promise of redemption. Even in Genesis 3:15, where the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, a hint of the Messiah to come. So whether you're wrestling with the days of creation or the nature of the serpent, approach Genesis with humility, seeking the truth it reveals about God and ourselves. That's all for this segment of Faith in Focus. If this sparked your curiosity, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Drop a comment or question on our website or social media. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep your faith in focus.
Thank you, Kevin, for giving us more insight on the genre used in Genesis that conveys theological truth. It's an absolute truth. And in a day like today, when things are shifting like sand, it's good to know we stand in truth. But thank you, Kevin, for the powerful segment as always.
Now remember, if there's a story happening in your county, your school board, your city council, or your neighborhood, or want an opportunity to advertise to our audience, we want to hear from you. Visit us at coastalconservativenews.com or call our tip line at 941-487-7441 to share your tips and stories.
Yeah, and that is a look at the stories shaping Florida this week, from public safety and financial accountability to education policy, environmental stewardship, and the debates happening in Tallahassee. These issues may seem very different on the surface, but they are all connected by one common thread. They are decisions that affect the daily lives of you and I, Floridians.
And sometimes policy discussions can feel overwhelming. Yeah. There are bills moving through committees, agencies conducting investigations, executive orders being issued, and new technologies emerging that lawmakers are trying to understand, but also so are you.
Yes.
But the goal of Coastal Conservative News here is simple: to break those issues down so everyday Floridians, just like you and I, can see not just what happened, but how government works and why those decisions matter to you at your kitchen table.
When you understand the systems behind the headlines, it becomes easier to follow the direction of policy and the choices being made on behalf of the public. And honestly, it makes you a more informed voter, right?
And we've given our consent to be governed, and so we need to know what that looks like.
What that looks like, whether it is protecting consumers from financial fraud, strengthening civic education for students, managing natural resources, or stabilizing the insurance market, it's all pertinent.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, government policy is not just something that happens in Tallahassee or Washington. It eventually shows up at your kitchen table, the gas pump, the grocery store. It shows up everywhere. Your child care, your education system, it shows up everywhere. In the cost of insurance, the safety of our communities, the quality of our education our children receive, and the opportunities available in the state we call home. It shows up.
It does. And an informed public is the foundation of a healthy republic. And understanding how these systems work is the first step toward meaningful civic engagement for you.
Thank you for joining us this week for Coastal Conservative News. We will continue following these stories and many others shaping the future of Florida.
That's right.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay Florida strong. We'll see you next time. I'm Allie Leger.
And I'm Michelle Posey, and this is Coastal Conservative News.
Good night, and God bless the free state of Florida.